It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, October 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's saying at least Michkov got on the board, right?
He did.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we are going to get into a bunch of stuff on today's show, including later we're going to preview our next game against the Minnesota Wild, plus take a peek in at Yegor Zavragin over in the KHL and talk Olympic hockey as well. But of course, we're starting with the 5-2 loss to the Winnipeg Jets. And I think there's two obvious things that were going on in this game. The first off was the lack of ability to capitalize on the power play, despite some excellent chances. Like the shots just weren't there.
Right. Yeah, the net front presence wasn't there. There was a couple good shots. There was no net front presence. And
There were some
so,
misses as well.
and some misses. Yeah. So that squandered it.
Right. And then I would say the other big part of the offensive side of things that wasn't working right was the entire third period. Now, you can say that Winnipeg also struggled in the third period in terms of getting shots. I mean, they only had 15 shots on goal in the entire game, one of which was an empty net goal. And
Right.
so if you had that number in a vacuum, you would think the Flyers would have had a bang up chance of winning this game, right? And say, great job defensively, Flyers. And yet, when you can't produce on the offensive side yourself, that's where you run into the problems, especially late in the game when things are on the line.
Well, yeah. Early part of the game, really for two periods, the Flyers never really had puck possession.
Right.
And again, breakouts were just brutal most of the game. So that part, I don't even know what to say. They had 2 days to practice. They clearly didn't practice that. So that was an issue. Uh, the Owen Tippett goal is a nice goal. I felt like he saw the same thing I did. Jonathan Taves looks like a step slow, and he took
Yep.
advantage. And that's good. That was good that he was able to do that. And he went in a little closer than he normally does, too, to take that shot. And I think that helped. He realized against Hellebuck, you got to really make your shots count. And so,
You do.
that was smart. Because that wasn't like a game where you say Hellebuck won that game. It wasn't.
No.
He, any goalie, that was just an any goalie NHL game. But the other part was Winnipeg knew after that goal that, hey, they had to really get back on the horse, and because the lead was cut, and they scored quickly after that, and that was the turning point for them. And Mark Scheifele talked about it because look, they had trouble too. We talked about it. It wasn't like the season's been clean for them, and they're trying to build on something. And so that answer back for them gave them the rest of the confidence they kind of needed for the rest of the game.
Right, that was abundantly clear. The fact that they scored, like, pretty quickly after
Yeah,
that 2-1, goal, by Tippett that cut the lead in half, and it just
yep,
showed, like, "Oh, like, we're not gonna let the Flyers actually get back into this game.
right.
Like,
Now the
we're
Flyers
gonna make
could
that clear."
Yeah, the Flyers could have like prevented it, but that was one where they couldn't get puck possession and then it hit off somebody, goes in the corner, and they knock it in. But this was a game where there was at least one goal Sam Ersson definitely should have stopped, and it was the Scheifele goal. Like that's
Yeah.
1-on-1. There's no deflection. You could see it, and again, he looks small in net at times when he just isn't fully, he's not standing fully and fully up, and so there's that, and then even that first goal, I sit next to somebody who, is a goalie and felt like, yeah, there was enough time for him to cover it up before a second chance happened. And that's probably going to be something that costs Sam Ersson playing time, plain and simple.
That first goal, I would put also on Drysdale.
That's fair.
I think the coverage was poor on
It
his
was.
part. I think that second goal, you're right, was mostly on Ersson. There's a little bit of a screen from Sealer on that, and a missed play by Grabenkin that led up to the pass in the first
Sure.
place. But the third goal, lack of coverage and
Yes.
backdoor was completely lost by Juleson.
Yep.
I think that was the huge part of that goal. And then you're right about the fourth goal, wide open view. And it was very clear based on if you're Sam Ersson in net, you can see what's happening in terms of where the Jets are positioning.
Yeah, he knew exactly where the shooting was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it was very obvious there's going to be a quick cross ice pass, to Scheifele. So, it was a mixed bag from Sam Ersson. Obviously, the percentage looks awful because there was only 14 shots on
Right.
goal and 4 of them went in,
Right.
right? So, it's not going to help his numbers, that's for sure. I think, you can wave away a little bit of it, but not all of it. And I think it just reiterates that Dan Vladar has the job until otherwise proven.
Yeah, he does. And then, the Flyers really need to rethink this defense. Like, they
Mhm.
should call up Emil Andre. They should sit one of the current defensemen. They have problems. Like, the defense is not set at all. I'm not going to talk about Cam York's game. He came back off the shelf. It's fine. I mean, he was going to be a little rusty. But,
Right.
Noah Juleson, he's a real adventure out there.
Yeah, definitely some failed coverage, not just on that goal, but on other plays as well. I thought, Drysdale again had a mixed bag of a game. I thought he looked decent on the power play for
Yeah.
sure. But, those defensive coverage failings were
Yeah.
very glaring.
And bringing the
out
puck up
there.
the ice, he struggles.
Yeah. And keeping the puck in the zone a couple of times he
Yeah.
missed. So, there's definitely some room for improvement there. Now, where we did see some improvement is that Travis Sanheim's ice time
Yeah,
went down to a
it did.
24 minutes, 35 seconds, which much better. We're getting there.
Probably felt like a
but-
vacation for him. Yeah,
oh my God.
that's a big deal. The fourth line was interesting because Luchenko tried to generate some things. He didn't shoot again, which he
I
really
know.
needs to.
I
But he
know.
tried to generate some stuff. But the problem was on a 2-on-1, you could see Hathaway was just way behind the play. And that doesn't help the other guys. And Luchenko came back and made a really good defensive play. But it's like, again,
He's too slow for them.
yeah, if you want to help those guys, then put Tippett with them on the fourth line and take Hathaway out and see how that looks. Because at least then everybody can skate.
Yeah, I think that is the deal here, and that's why we've been talking about trying to split them up and move Grabenkin up and allow
Yeah.
Luchenko to have a fourth line at least if he's going to be down there, put him with Dvorak,
Right.
and it makes more sense.
Somebody else, yeah.
Yeah, we've now seen this for a couple of games, and it's worth trying something else. I mean, I can certainly understand and respect wanting to stick with something for more than one game just to see if it's a
Right.
fluke. But I feel like we know now that
I
this
think
setup
so.
isn't exactly working from an offensive or defensive
Well,
perspective.
the other thing, that's hurting Grabenkin is on the fourth line, he's going up against sometimes the other team's grind line, and they're just rubbing him out. Like, they're just
Oh,
checking him
yeah.
off. And he wouldn't get that as much on the third line if he was on that, or the second line, definitely. So that's something where he's just going up against a brick wall sometimes. They're just out to get him, and I get it.
I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because you have like a younger player who doesn't know the ropes yet, trying to get net
Right.
front. Your first instinct is going to be to try and push him
Yeah.
out,
'Cause
and
he got
they were able to
hammered.
do it.
He got hammered a few times.
Yeah. Now, I think we talked about Luchenko not shooting. I think with Matvei Michkov, right? He had 2 shots on goal, and one of them went in. I maybe would have liked to see a few more shots from him, despite the
Something
fact that I am
changed.
happy that he scored.
Yeah, something changed though, because he came out different in the third period, and So something changed, whether coach said something to him or something, and so he played with a little more confidence for a couple minutes. But then that turnover was brutal, and so it's like, he gets the nice goal and then he gives it away and they get an empty netter. Like, I don't know how that's going to look for the coach to evaluate him. It's not going to be a big plus.
Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about is how the Jets defended the Cates line, because I
Hmm.
think they were successful for the first period of it, but I do really think the Cates line adjusted a little bit and were able to get some additional chances, especially in the second period. And so I was very happy to see that. And Tyson Forster, especially, I thought adjusted well to how the Jets were playing them.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Cates line does have the ability to do that. They're a smart, hardworking, good hockey IQ line, and so I do feel like you're right about that. I did see that in Forster. So yeah, all of that's accurate. You know, the other guys like with Konechny and Couturier, yeah, they're playing hard, but going up against the Winnipeg Jets that way, if they have a bad game, I wasn't going to kill them because a
No.
lot of teams have bad games against them.
That is absolutely true. All right. Well, the next team the Flyers face is the Minnesota Wild. We're going to talk about that matchup coming up next. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those games. But let's be real, getting tickets can sometimes be a total headache between waiting in ticket queues, the surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on the Flyers. And that's where Gametime comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. One of my favorite features is you can see exactly what your seat view looks like before buying the tickets with their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are also a game changer. You pick the section, Gametime picks your seats. You can save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. I recently used Gametime to grab seats for the Lord concert at MSG. It was such a great time, and it could not have been simpler. I had great seats in minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. On our Monday show, we will be back to recap the game against the Minnesota Wild that we are about to talk about now. Plus, we're going to preview Monday night's game against the Seattle Kraken, who are having a very interesting season to get started at the moment. Plus, we'll have our nemesis of the week. So, a jam-packed show Monday. But we do have to talk about those very Minnesota Wild here. They have had a very busy off season, as well as going up to the wire heading into the regular season here. Of course, in the off season, they picked up Vladimir Tarasenko, which was like a big acquisition to their team. And after much consternation and trade rumors, even involving, we talked about it with potentially the Flyers, Marco Rossi got extended for 3 years at $5 million. We talked about that deal when it happened, because it's a really interesting one, because it's kind of the team is betting on saving some money now, and Rossi is kind of betting on himself. It's very much that bridge deal.
Yeah, no question. I mean, but he's a good player. He's a point a game player right now.
That's why we wanted him, right?
Yeah, he's a 60-point guy. Like, that's what he looks like.
Exactly. Then, of course, the big whopper deal on Kirill Kaprizov for 17 million AAV, which is currently 16.3% of their salary cap, which is a lot. But knowing that the cap is going to continue to go up, this is a really good bet for them in a lot of ways.
It is. I mean, he's a once in a generation draft pick. You can't get a guy like this every year in the draft. And so you have to do that. If you don't, you'll never get the value back in a trade. He means a lot to the team. I might argue he's the second most impactful player on the team, but he's super impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think obviously he's going to be one of the most dangerous players in the
Yeah.
game to watch out for. We'll get into that. They also re-signed Philip Gustafson in net for 5 years at 6.8, which I think is a pretty spot on deal for him.
For the moment, he's going to get pushed by Jesper Wallstedt, and it's not going to take long. So we'll see how all that sort of works out in the next year or two. It might even start happening this year.
Well, we'll probably get a preview of that given the Wild schedule here. Matt Zuccarello, Nico Sturm on their injured list as of recording. With Nico Sturm, he could be okay, but we'll see what's happening there. The Wild have split their 4 games that they have played thus far. And I think, the most interesting thing about them, they are playing the Caps tonight. So when they face the Flyers, it'll be on the second half of a back-to-back.
Right.
But they have not played since their loss to Dallas on Tuesday night. So they had a little bit of a break, but then the back-to-back. So they will be playing a little bit tired.
Yeah, no question about it. And both goalies are good. Look, they may have lost to Dallas, but Matt Boldy took 10 shots. Tell me the last time the Flyers faced a player that took 10 shots against them.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge shot blocking game. That is, for
it's
sure.
Going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And it may, the problem is Kaprizov is the kind of player, because I've watched him enough. If you're going to go down early to block a shot, he's going around you, man. Like, you can't shot block with him out there. You might be able to shot block some of the other guys, but he will just go around you and then either score or make the play. So you got to be wary of that. And Boldy might be the most impactful because he's going to the net and he's going to be around there. And so, like, pick your poison there. And then you got Rossi, who's a point a game, and you've got Z William, who I think we've mentioned on this show. People have to go back and
maybe
check.
A few times.
Maybe. He's more than a point a game right now. So they have enough offense. Their defense probably hasn't been good enough, but they're a threat, a big threat.
They're getting offense from the defense, but just not defense from the defense.
Right.
And that's kind of the weird thing that's going on with this team right now overall. The other weird thing that's going on with Minnesota thus far is that they have gone several games without a 5-on-5 goal. That not their 9 most recent goals were on the power play. Now, this is obviously before tonight's game against the Caps. But that being said, like, the fact that this powerhouse top line is really only finding success on the power play, and it's kind of inflating their stats a little bit, but it doesn't negate their skill or what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Scoring is scoring, and I agree with that. But it is a really interesting thing that's happening with them.
Yeah, it could be an early season anomaly, but the thing is, it's going to test the Flyers' penalty kill. I can tell you that, especially if they're going to take as many penalties as they have been.
Exactly. And that is why I bring it up, because the Flyers have, prior to last night's game that, we're obviously previewing this a little bit before that. So, the Flyers have had some issues with penalties thus far this season, and they cannot do that against this Minnesota Wild team who have found tremendous success on the power play here. And it just got me thinking, well, like, what's the ideal penalty kill unit to put out against this top power play? Their top power play unit, let me just list these players: Vladimir Tarasenko, Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy, Zeev Buium, and Kirill Kaprizov.
Seems okay.
Yeah, that's really tough. And so, they're going to be strong net front. They're going to move the puck very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Their passing is going to be sharp, short, and extremely effective. So who from the Flyers do you put out there against that unit? To me, it's got to be Sanheim, Sealer, Dvorak, and Coots.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, again, this might be a good game to try out Luchenko on the second penalty kill, because
but that's against, in theory, against their other unit, which is still good.
But I'm just saying, because I feel like the only thing that's kind of missing on the Flyers penalty kill is skill and a scoring threat. If you don't have a scoring threat on your penalty kill, and the other team knows it, it makes it easier. When the Flyers were back in the day where they were scoring goals on the penalty kill, it makes it much harder to go up against that.
Yeah, and I struggle with that because obviously Travis Konechny is a guy that would normally be out there on the
Right.
first PK unit for that very reason, but I don't know that he's the right guy to defend against this particular power play unit, and
Right.
that's why I replaced him. And I find
And they
interestingly
probably won't.
Travis,
They'll probably leave Konechny there. Just spoiler
yeah,
alert. But
oh,
I don't disagree with you.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but I feel like this is the exception to that rule. I just
Yeah.
feel like, if you put Coots and Dvorak out there, I think that's enough of at least a breakout, especially with Sanheim
Yeah.
on that unit. I feel like, Sealer's your defensive defenseman there. He's going to block
Yep.
every shot he possibly can. Sanheim is the guy that's going to get the puck out of there,
Right.
right? And Coots and Dvorak can handle the simple breakout, and then they can dump it once they
Right.
hit, the neutral zone. So I'm not like exceedingly worried about creating offense on the penalty kill
I
against
am
this
though.
unit.
I am because I feel like
But
I feel like, again, if teams are going to go up against the Flyers and know that there's not that much risk of a shorthanded goal, it does make it easier.
yeah, I mean, I see that. It's just I think this is the exception to that rule, in my
I know.
opinion.
I'll give you an example. Like, I've watched William on the power play, and he's terrific. If you drop off on him a little bit and you give him just that little bit of space, that puck's going here to Kaprizov, to Boldy near the net. Like, that's it. You can't give him that space. So that's the problem is if you and again, when you play up close like that, once in a while, if you get a guy that could bat away a puck and you get a chance the other way, it does put the other team back on his heels a little. That's where I'm sort of getting at.
Yeah, and I think you could do that offensive push with your second unit. I think that's where you do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you kind of hunker down for the first unit and try and make that push with the second unit. But
Yeah.
I think, this Wild team, we talk about Bouillon a lot here, but they have some other young players
They
as
do.
well. And this is like, I think the age swath on this team is pretty big. Like their oldest players are really old and their youngest players are
Yeah.
really young, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, it's not a rebuild for this team at all. This is just a continuation of what they've been doing, but it does put them in an interesting spot with not a lot of like mid-career stellar players.
Right. So for everybody wondering, and I can read all of your minds, they're like, well, what makes the Wild different than the Flyers? Because they're very similar. They've
Yeah.
been very similar for a long time. It's the
Chuck
goaltending.
Fletcher notwithstanding,
Right.
right?
Forget that. And Brent. But that's not it either. It's the goaltending. That's what makes it
Yeah.
different. Because they have a real goaltender in the waiting, and they have a good goaltender who's their number one right now. The Flyers are still trying to find that spot. They have found it, and so that puts them ahead of them just for that.
Yeah, and we're going to see Wallstedt in this game because I truly believe they're going to play Gustafsson against the Caps.
And he was impressive in a
tonight.
shootout win
So-
recently. I saw some highlights from that.
Yeah, he's played one game so far this season. So
Yeah.
this will be his second game.
Yeah.
And in that game, they won against the LA Kings in a shootout, no less.
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying. He was impressive
know.
in that from the highlights and stopped some
Yeah.
good players. And so, yeah, he's working off a high right now.
yeah, so I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I think there's going to be some opportunities for the Flyers, but like we said, we got to focus on staying out of the box and being an effective penalty kill there to win it. In the meantime, to continue our goaltending conversation here, there's been some early season talk about Yegor Zavragin over in Russia, and we're going to talk about him as well as some potential Olympic ice issues coming up
Shocker.
next.
The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during the games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or or love diving into the stats. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Again, I would still bet with the New York Jets to have the worst record in the league, although after a while the odds may not be worth it. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
All right. So with Yegor Zavragin, I think, the conversation has continued over the last couple of years since the Flyers have drafted him, of him sort of being one of these magical Russian goaltenders that's going to come over here and save us all. This is the third of them in a line of having those conversations. And I feel like there's a pattern developing here about getting overexcited without seeing the evidence in North America. So I guess, Russ, like the first part of this conversation is, how do we translate what he is doing in Russia over to what he could do over here?
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing is, as far as usage, the fact that he played a VHL game and he's played one less game than the other guy there tells me that it's not an exact tandem. So you have that going on, and that may change. The numbers look good, but I started to look at it, and a few things have stuck out to me. He's given up goals on his glove side. So when players are going, opposing players, that's the side that they're going on. He's only given up like 3 long range goals. So that's good, because I know more guys are trying to do that in every league now, trying to see if you catch the goalie before he gets set. So that's a thing. He's given up 4 rebound goals. It's not a ton, but I see how he does give up those goals. It's because he's really athletic. And if he makes one of those kind of crazy saves, sometimes the puck gets out there and he can't glove it. So then it's up to his defense to kind of like do something about that. So I don't really hold it against him. I just point that out. But the other thing is, when he's in motion going to the right, they've scored on him, more than a few times, but not as much on the left side. So it does tell me that he does have some exaggerated motions, and I've seen it. Like he's almost too athletic right now. So if he were in the NHL right now and he bypassed everything, they would exploit that. Like that's something that's exploitable. And we all even talked about Kolosov, how he was moving around too much, and he has sort of calmed that down. The same thing's going to have to happen here, whether it happens in Russia or it happens in North America. I do like his stick play. It's really good the way he clears. He comes out of the net. He's kind of fearless that way. We'll get the puck back to the team. That's all good. That in today's game, that's what you want. He's pretty good with screens in front of him. That's another good thing. So look, I like what I see, but I can't look at his stats and watch the film and tell you that he's the next Shesterkin or Sorokin or like that. I don't see that yet. But he's 20. And that's my point, is everybody's like, well, get him over here, get him right in there. And it's like, no, that's not what you want to do. He has to fully dominate that league to the point where they're saying he's the best goalie in that league. He is not there yet.
Or at least top 5, right?
I mean, sure, if you want to say top 5, but I mean, even when you're top 5 in the KHL, doesn't mean you're even ready for the NHL either. It just means you've had some, kind of like a good tune-up, but then you got to get used to the North American angles and everything. And that's why nobody comes over and immediately goes into the NHL from the KHL. It's just not a good strategy.
Right. And that's why I feel like there is almost an easier transition from the SHL coming over here in Sweden, because the style is a little bit more similar.
Yeah.
Right. So the transition takes a little bit longer. And, to your point, that's what we've seen with Kolosov. The other issue is that he's got 2 more years of his contract over there. And so I think 2 more years over there is a good time for him to come over, and because he'll be like 22 at that point. And I think that's the perfect age for him to come over. Then he gets like a year of seasoning in the AHL.
And then you see
and
what
then
you
we'll
have.
see.
Right.
Yeah. That's the exact way it should go. Now, this is all presuming that the next 2 years for him go very well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think they won't, but I'm just saying, from a Flyers planning standpoint, they've got to figure out goaltending coverage for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And they only have a goalie for 1 year.
In Dan
Vladar's the
Vladar,
only
which
one.
is interesting.
Right.
Is that he's
So
the
they
one.
have to kind of, figure out the next part of that equation. And I'm sure that's what this season's about.
Right. And I think that's why it behooves Alexei Kolosov to just put his head down and play well in Lehigh
Right.
Valley, because he can smell the blood in the water if Ersson isn't living up to potential,
Right.
because Ersson contract is also expiring at the end
Right.
of this year. And if he does everything that's asked of him and plays well, there is an opportunity for
Oh,
him to
sure. He's got
establish
age on his
himself.
side. Danny's talked about that. There's still a
Yeah.
chance for him that way, but he has to get through a whole AHL season with no issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think that's kind of where we're at with the Flyers
Yep.
goaltending development. And I do think it's important to be a little bit metered with the Zavragin,
Yeah.
but also, hopeful about it at the same time. I think
Definitely
there's
should be
reason for both.
hopeful. Definitely could say that he has NHL quality. I'm with everybody who wants to do
Yeah.
that. But then if you're going to tell me that he's definitely the number one, I can't say that yet.
No, of course, nobody can.
I mean, there's
Nobody
probably
can.
somebody who wants to, or other people that want to. I just don't want to.
Yeah, I just think like the certainty of it. I mean, you can, but you could say, well, it's a 50-50 shot, like with every other goaltender that
Yeah.
comes through, right? So the
Yeah, I mean,
possibility
does he have
is
more
there.
ability than Bjarnason? Yeah, he does.
He does. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
And
definite.
that's where I think, that's the conversation will get interesting, and depending on how Bjarnason
Right, how that
does as
all
well.
lines up. But Bjarnason's lucky because he's going to have AHL time and maybe even 2 years of it before he even has to think about it.
Which is great for him,
It
honestly.
is. It is good for him.
Gives him time to cook. One thing that is not going to have time to cook is
They
the
are
ice
running out of
service.
time on this.
Oh my God, where the Olympics hockey tournament is supposed to take place, and Gary Bettman expressed some concern at the post Board of Governors presser that just happened, and we have been talking about this for
I have
over a
expressed
year.
concern for over a year. I've been online looking for pictures. I had a friend who lived in Italy who since moved back to the States. Like, I've been worried about this for longer.
Yeah, and the thing that worries me the most about it is, number one, I do appreciate Batman raising the alarm about it,
No, it's
because
good. That was
it's
good.
very, very good that he did that. But number two, the women's tournament starts first, and so they're going to be the guinea pigs
Yep.
for this, and that's not fair
Unfortunately,
to
it's
the
not.
women
And that's the
either.
way it looks like it's shaping up. And
But the test event that they were supposed to have at that rink is now getting relocated because it's not ready. So no test events. Can you keep water frozen Italy? I don't know. I
right. I
literally
mean,
don't know.
this whole thing, again, this whole thing, I've probably even talked about it longer than a year, but on this show, a year. And
Yeah.
it's just wild to me that it's coming down to this. And now it's like, oh, yeah, they may not be able to have that first game there. And it's like, now I'm not saying it's the NHL's fault. It is not. What I am
No.
saying is it's the IIHF and Italy's fault. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And this thing has just been going slowpoke the whole time.
Yeah, it's been an issue this whole time, but we'll keep track of it and see
We
what it
will.
means for the Olympic hockey tournament and the Flyers that are playing in it moving forward. That will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will, of course, be back on Monday to recap this Flyers versus Wild game, plus preview Flyers versus Kraken, and name our nemesis of the week. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. Today, for your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. It's every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale with NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.